Haribo, Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pararajik Chasta Tarasatarishi Shishimada's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavindi Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Pranam Sikho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samkunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Haribo. Shri Damodar Hasta Ki Jai, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna. So today we're going to discuss the Damodar Hasta, the meaning of this wonderful prayer, originally written by Satyavrata Muni. And it's always sung during this period of the month of Kartik. And it's very much appreciated by Vaishnavas. And it's good to go into the deep meaning of this prayer, because this prayer is the quintessential core of Vaishnava's belief and their meditative state of contemplation 24 hours a day on Krishna's intimate pastime with Mother Yasoda. And the order to, or the injunction for the daily recitation of this prayer during the month of Kartik is originally found in the Padma Purana and collaborated by Sanatana Goswami's Hari Bhakti Vilasa. I'm sorry, Gopal Bhatta Goswami's Hari Bhakti Vilasa, and also to Sanatana Goswami. And this Hari Bhakti Vilasa is sometimes referred to as Vaishnava Smriti, or the law book of devotional law book of Bhakti. But of course, we study more, let's say, Srila Prabhupada asks us to study more carefully the Nectar of Devotion by Rupa Goswami. Okay, so the prayers of Damodar Hasta, which should be read during the month of Kartika or meditated on, is explained as follows. Tata Priyatama Vishnu Radhika Gopi Kasucha Kartike Punjan Iya Cha Shri Damodara Sanido. Shri Radhika is Lord Hari's favorite among the gopis. Therefore, during Kartika, she should be worshipped next to Shri Damodara. Well, we do that all year round. We don't do that only in Kartik. And it just shows you how the Gaudiya Vaishnavas have a very special feeling for Radha and Krishna, understanding the supreme position of Srimati Radharani. And we'll see this as we go deeper into the meaning of the Damodar Hasta prayer. O Brahmanas, Shri Damodara, Lord Hari, is very pleased with the devotee who seeks Shri Radhika's satisfaction by worshipping her deity during the month of Kartika. Well, we worship her alongside Lord Krishna every day. And one should regularly recite this prayer by Satyvrata Rishi called Damodar Hasta because this worship attracts Lord Damodara. Damodara means that he has a rope around his belly, that it's tying him out of affection and love of Mother Yasoda. Okay. So, we begin the first prayer, which is Naamam Ishwaram Satchit Anandarupam Lasat Kundalam Gokule Pajamanam Yasoda Biolukalad Davamanam Param Vistam Atyanto Drutya Gopya. So, I bow down to the Supreme Lord. Whoever shines in Gokula, he is compact sentience, eternity and bliss, and constitution. His earrings were dancing on his cheeks as he ran from the mortar in fear of Mother Yasoda, who eventually caught him in the chase that followed. Now, Srila Prabhupada prefers this translation: to the Supreme Controller, who possesses an eternal form of blissful knowledge, whose glistening earrings swing to and fro, who manifested himself in Gokula, who stole the butter that gopis kept hanging from the rafters of their storerooms, and who then quickly jumped up and ran in retreat in fear of Mother Yasoda, but was ultimately caught. To that Supreme Lord, Sri Damodara, I offer my humble obeisances. Now you might ask, why are there different translations? Well, because there are many different meanings in every phrase and every word in Sanskrit. Not just one meaning, but there are many different flavors, or it's like rainbow of meanings that can be read into this. That just shows the richness of the Sanskrit language, as well as the power of the poetic expressions here. So we're going to go into some of those meanings now to get a deeper understanding of this Damodar Astakam prayer. First of all, Satyvrata Rishi, he says, Namo, I offer my respects and prayers to the Supreme Lord. That's the way you always start a prayer, by first bowing down to the Lord. When you come into the temple, you first bow down to the Lord, and recognizing that He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So before he describes Krishna's transcendental and sweet qualities, he first bows down. So he says, Namami, I bow down, Ishwaram, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then he says, Satchitananda Rupam, who has the form of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. So, where else do we hear this? Ishwara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. So we see the Brahma Samhita, the prayers of Lord Brahma, begins in the same way. So he said, here he says, Namam Ishwaram, I bow down to the Supreme Lord. And Brahma says, Ishwara Parama Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is the prelude to any prayer, is bowing down to the Lord. He says, Namam Ishwaram Satchitananda Rupam. He humbly begins by paying his respects to invoke auspiciousness as per the rules of entering into the presence of the Lord. One bows down. And who does he offer his respects to? Ishwara, the Supreme Lord. Ishwara means that he is the owner of every energy. Now, you and me, you and I, we are energies of the Lord. For example, how do we know that? Because it's the soul that energizes the body to move. Your body or my body without the presence of the soul has no energy. It's dead. See? Just like your cell phone, right? If the battery is dead, does it work?
No.
No. So what do you have to do to get it to work? You have to recharge the battery, you see? So that battery receives energy, and then it makes the phone work. Without energy in the battery, it doesn't work. In the same way, sometimes people say, oh, I don't have any energy. Why is that? Because they're not recharging their battery, the soul, right? You cover the soul too much with nonsense and you lose your energy. It becomes rusty. Just like if you find a rusty old pair of scissors in your backyard, can you use them? No, they're stuck. You have to clean off the rust, and then the scissors start moving again. The same way, you put too much rust on your soul by doing too much nonsense, then you lose your energy. And you have no desire to engage in devotional service. You may have desire to do nonsense, but you don't have the desire to do any devotional service. You don't have the energy to do it because the soul has become rusted over with too much nonsensical stuff. Gossip and hearing politics and sports and just doing foolish things, and you lose your spiritual energy. So, Ishwara means he's the owner of every energy. He owns it. Our soul is the energy of Krishna, and he owns it because he's Ishwara. And he's the undisputed Lord of the entire universe. So there's these three different meanings. And this word Ishwara implies that Satyavrata Rishi is glorifying the Lord by using the word Ishwara, the owner of all energy, the undisputed Lord of the universe, and the controller, supreme controller. So, by glorifying the Lord with this word, it implies bhakti, devotion, because you can't glorify someone simply with words. You have to glorify them also with actions. So if I tell you all the time, oh, I love you very much, and every time you ask me to do something for you, I say, oh, no, I can't do it right now. So would you think that person loves you? If every time you ask them to do something to help you, they always say no? So it's just empty words. So glorifying the Lord implies bhakti, serving the Lord. Okay. That's why so many people don't glorify the Lord. Instead of glorifying the Lord, they say, oh, I need this, and I need that, and I need something else, and I need this, and I need that, and please give it to me right away. Well, that's not glorifying the Lord, you see. And therefore, people don't know how to pray. You pray by glorifying the Lord. So we're learning, he begins with Naamam Ishwaram, Sat Chitananda Rupam, glorifying the Lord. And it implies that he's going to engage in the service of the Lord. That's his life and soul. You don't just glorify the Lord with words, but those words lead to service. Just like if you say, "Oh, I like you very much," and it leads to, "Do you need anything? Can I do anything for you? Can I help you?" You see? So, without leading to devotion, they're just empty words. And by paying such respect and glorification to the Lord, this creates auspiciousness. This clears the atmosphere of any inauspicious things, you see. So by saying these prayers every day, it brings auspiciousness. And it clears away all inauspicious or bad things. So Krishna is concentrated eternity, bliss, and knowledge. And this is what he's made of. We right now think I am this body, and the body is made of stool, urine, pus, spit, and so forth, you see. So the body has a nasty composition. And because of that, one who's attached to the body has a inauspicious, nasty type of life, always doing unclean things. But if you understand, I'm not this body, I'm the soul. That's the energy of the body that's giving the body concentrated eternity, bliss, and knowledge, or potentially can give or infuse the body with concentrated eternity, bliss, and knowledge, then everything becomes auspicious. But if you think I'm just this body made of stool, urine, pus, and so forth, it's inauspicious. It's not a clean place. So then Satyavrata Muni begins to explain the supreme position of the Lord by portraying or explaining his extraordinary charm. Lasat kundalam Naamam Ishwaram Satchitananda Rupam Lasat kundalam. This Lasat kundalam begins to portray or show his extraordinary charm. This is why we're attracted to Krishna, because he is very charming. And how is he charming? Well, he's got these beautiful earrings. See? It's like, why do women wear earrings? Do you know?
Just to like, it's just like an ornament to it. Just to look pretty. Yeah, look good. Just to look good.
Huh?
Just to look good.
To look good, exactly, right? Yeah, and men sometimes wear earrings too. Men also wearing, but women wear these exotic earrings. You know, you have like a dolphin or a flower or a diamond or a feather. You know, they're all different types of earrings. Why? Because it's charming. It's say, well, it's not an ordinary ear. It's an earring. It's an ear with an earring, right? So it makes it look better than just an ordinary ear, right? And therefore, he says, Lasat kundalam, Krishna is very charming because he has these earrings, and these earrings, because he's in his pastime, he's running away from his mom, and he is shaking his head somewhat in fear, and the earrings are flapping on his cheeks, and it makes his cheeks look brilliant. So Lasat kundalam, and the earrings are, I guess they're longer, so they're playing on his cheeks as he's running. from his mom. So what is this whole pastime about? It's because it's explained in 10th canto, chapter 9. While Krishna's mother Yasoda was allowing Krishna to drink her breast milk, she was forced to stop because she saw that her milk, the milk that she was heating, was overflowing from the pot and boiling over and onto the clay oven. And and the other gopis were engaged in other activities, so they were not minding or paying attention to the pot that was overflowing. So what happened? Mother Yasoda stopped Krishna from drinking her milk, and she ran to the clay oven to pull the pot off of the fire. And Krishna became angry because his mom stopped letting him drink milk. And to show his anger, he began to break some pots of yogurt. And because he did this, Mother Yasoda decided, oh, he's being very naughty, I'm going to tie him up. See? This is what's described in this chapter 9 of Canto 10, Srimad Bhagavatam. And Krishna broke the churning pot, and then he began to eat some freshly churned butter. And after Mother Yasoda returned, she saw the pot was broken, and she could understand this was the work of the naughty Krishna. And he also, he was standing on the ulukala, the large mortar. So, you know, when we do, you know, spice blends at the festivals, right, we have what's called a mortar and a pestle. The mortar is this big rock, a stone carved vessel, you know, and it has like a deep groove in it. And you put the spices in there, and then you have the pestle, this stone like hammer, and you bang on it and crush the, well, they had a big one. Mother Yasoda had a real big one. Because sometimes they're making big feasts, and they need a larger quantity. So there are such things, some real big mortars and pestles. And Krishna was standing on it. He breaks the churning pot, and then he starts eating some of the freshly churned butter, and then he stands up on that large mortar for grinding spices, because he turned the mortar upside down so he could get higher. Right? The bottom part is solid. The up part has the big opening, a hole in it. So he turns it upside down, so it's like a ladder now. And he starts stealing the butter that they put in pots suspended from the ceiling so that monkeys can't get to it. You see, you have to know what the life in Vrindavan is like. Even today, there are monkeys in Vrindavan, and they're thieves. They'll come and steal things. So they put the pots hanging from the ceiling, so there's nothing that the monkeys can do to get to it. They need a column or something, but it's just hanging. And as soon as Krishna sees his mom, and by the way, he started distributing the butter to the monkeys. Well, that's the worst thing you can do. They go through all that trouble to keep the pot free from the monkeys. Put your hand over your mouth when you yawn, right? We don't want to see your tongue and so forth, your esophagus. So Mother Yasoda really gets upset when she sees this. So Krishna, he understands that, you know, he's done something wrong, so he begins to run away. And Mother Yasoda starts running after him. And after going some distance, she's able to catch Krishna, although it's impossible to catch Krishna, but because of her love for Krishna, he lets her catch him. And Krishna starts crying, and Mother Yashoda threatens to punish him if he does that again. So this, you know, these things happen normally, right? And when kids are growing up, sometimes they do things they shouldn't do. And, okay, Mayapur, can you try and listen instead of doodling with your friend? Okay, let's play 6 feet, Mayapur. Let's play the game 6 feet. Come on, we can't continue the class until you move 6 feet away. And the next time you do it, it'll be 12 feet. Very good. Mayapur's very precise. He's measuring. But your feet are smaller than the normal foot, so. Yeah, okay, good. All right, sit down and face this way. Yeah, good. And give the pencil to someone else. The pencil is for taking notes, not for doodling. You're going to take notes, or you're going to, okay. So, Mother Yashoda decides to tie Krishna to the mortar. So she gets some rope, and she tries to tie him, but every time she tries to tie him, it's 2 fingers or 2 inches too short. So she keeps getting more rope and adding it onto the previous rope. And every time it's 2 inches too short. And then she gets some more rope, and again it's 2 inches too short. When she tries to tie him, it's always too short. So she gets really frustrated. And she tries many times with many different ropes adding on. And finally she gets tired. And when Krishna sees his mother's frustration and how she's getting tired, he allows himself to be bound. But it's impossible to tie up Krishna, but because of the love of Mother Yashoda. So now we see that Mother Yashoda is an exceptionally advanced devotee, where more advanced than almost anybody else. Okay, why? Don't throw anything. Okay, leave that there. Don't go ever. Don't get it. So, because Krishna was compassionate to Mother Yashoda, she didn't show him his unlimited potencies. His unlimited potency would mean she would never be able to run after him and catch him, and she would never be able to tie him up. So out of compassion for her, he lets her catch him and tie him up. Now see, this is why people don't understand Krishna, because in Vrindavan, in his childhood pastimes, he's acting like an ordinary child. And this confuses people. Like, for example, in the history of Govardhan Puja, at one point, Krishna lifts up the whole mountain, although he's only 7 years old. So then everybody, not everybody, not the inhabitants of Vrindavan, but Brahma realizes he's not an ordinary child. He looked like an ordinary child, and he thought this would be an easy endeavor for him to bewilder Krishna by stealing all his cows and cowherd boys. But when he sees that Krishna has mysteriously expanded himself into cows and cowherd boys, and also he's lifted up this gigantic hill or a mountain, he realizes that he looks like a little ordinary boy, but he's not. And then after everything is over, Brahma surrenders, and also Indra surrenders to him. He goes back to being an ordinary boy, acting as if he doesn't have all these powers, and he doesn't manifest them, and he lets other boys sit on his back and they play different games, and they wrestle and so forth, and sometimes the boys overwhelm Krishna, and So he looks like an ordinary boy, but he's not. And only devotees can understand this. Non-devotees, they can't understand. Therefore, there's something mysterious. Krishna can, anytime he wants, manifest his infinite powers. And other times he can play as if he's an ordinary boy, and you wouldn't know how powerful he is. So now, after Mother Yasoda ties Krishna, she goes back to her different household chores. But Krishna sees these two big trees, the Yamala Arjuna trees, who are actually Nala Kuvera and Manigriva, the sons of Kuvera, and who had been cursed by Narada Muni to become trees. So he says, oh, my dear Narada cursed them. He's my pure devotee. Therefore, I must be compassionate to them. So whenever someone has a contact with a pure devotee, auspicious things happen to that person. So here, Manigriva and Nala Kuvera were drunkards and womanizers, and they disrespected Narada Muni, remained naked in front of him. So he cursed them, but his curse was actually a blessing. He cursed them to become trees in Vrindavana, and in the future Krishna would, knowing that they had some relationship to Narada Muni, would be compassionate to them and liberate them. So he starts moving toward the trees to fulfill the desire of Narada Muni. Narada Muni's desire was not to curse them to eternal damnation, but he cursed them so they would be eternally liberated in the future. So if anyone's going to curse you, you should be cursed by a pure devotee, not by a demon, right? Okay, so Krishna is Lasat Kundalam, extremely charming. And the other thing is that these two earrings, that they are beautiful because they're not because they themselves are beautiful, but because they're touching the cheeks of Krishna. That's why they're so beautiful. And they're actually kissing his cheeks. That's what makes them beautiful. And they're shining because of Krishna's beauty, because Krishna is the source of all light. So he makes them shine because of his own beauty and light. His body makes jewels more beautiful. It's not that the jewels themselves are so beautiful. So all these points are in the poetry. And you can see there's many dimensions to these words. Lasat Kundalam has all these dimensions to it. See, when someone becomes a poet, a great poet is one who can put together words in such a way that there's multiple dimensions of meaning, not just one. Multiple dimensions. And people who read poetry of great poets, so the greatest poet is Vyasadeva. He wrote Srimad Bhagavatam, you know, and because he received the power to write that poetry from Krishna. And ultimately, Krishna is the supreme poet. He spoke Bhagavad Gita, which has multiple dimensions of meanings in the words of Bhagavad Gita, and so forth. So also in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And now Satyavrata Muni is writing this beautiful poem, the Damodar Hasta. There are many levels of meanings. Now, some people, like Mayavadis, they incorrectly skew out meanings from the Sanskrit. They are not there. Whereas it requires a pure devotee to be able to understand the correct meanings, layers of meanings in spiritual poetry. So, even Uddhava in the 3rd canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 2nd chapter, 12th verse, he says that Krishna himself is spellbound by the splendor of his own body. One time Krishna saw a reflection of his body in the either a pond or it was the Yamuna, and he became spellbound. He said, wow, I'm so beautiful. Now, this is not narcissism. You know what narcissism is? Okay. What? Well, one is becomes proud of their own beauty. Like, sometimes women, you know, they spend like 2 hours, you know, doing their eyes and doing this and putting on makeup, and it's a narcissistic activity. You know, they're overwhelmed by their own mundane beauty. Yes.
How do you spell it?
Yeah. Yeah, I see, I forgot to bring my phone. N-A-R. Huh? C-I-S-S-I-S-M. Narcissism. Sounds like a scissor. Narcissism. I-S-M. When someone can look it up on their phone, on their iPhone, or is that right?
Yes.
Narcissism. And read the meaning?
Excessive or erotic interest in oneself and one's physical appearance.
Right. Excessive or what? What was that other word?
Erotic.
Erotic. Wow, that's even worse. Okay. So, but Krishna is not narcissistic. He's just amazed. He's spellbound by his own beauty. And so now, Gokule Brajamanam. This Gokule Brajamanam. So Krishna appears splendid because, in the 10th canto, 32nd chapter, 14th verse, he's also surrounded by an incredible number and beautiful gopis who are worshiping him. And that just enhances his beauty. Just like, let's say there's a very popular movie star, and he takes a picture with, let's say, 20 female movie stars around him, all dressed up and all decked out with their jewelry and everything. So he looks even better because of all these beautiful women around him. And this is the thing about Krishna. He's surrounded by devotees who have an incredible level of love for him. So this makes him even more beautiful. So Satyavrata Rishi is promoting the Lord's supreme position by sketching one of his exquisite or fabulous pastimes, where he says, Yasoda biyo luka lad. That is, that this snatching the yogurt from the hanging jar and seeing his mother come running after him and climbing down from the mortar and running in fear of punishment for his mischief of breaking the clay pots. So he's also furtively looking around, make sure no one is coming before he sees his mom. And then he sees his mom, is like horrified, you know. So this whole thing is a drama of transcendental ecstasy. And this is what the people in Vrindavan are experiencing. They're seeing these pastimes of the Lord, and they're just overwhelmed by it. You know. And then he's feeding the yogurt to the monkeys, and then he sees his mom, and coming with a stick, by the way. and he climbs down from the mortar, and he runs away in fear, but she's running after him. And it's just an incredible pastime of the Lord. Okay, so here it says, Sukadeva Goswami continued, one day when Mother Yasoda saw that all the maidservants were engaged in other household affairs, she personally began to churn the yogurt. While churning, she remembered the childish activities of Krishna, and in her own way, she composed songs and enjoyed singing to herself about all of Krishna's pastimes. This incident of Krishna breaking the pot of yogurt and being bound by Mother Yasoda took place on the Diwali day. Say,
What is it?
Diwali. It took place on Diwali. Why? Well, see, Lord Rama appears before Krishna by at least more than 1 million years, right? So they were also celebrating Diwali. Even today in India, this festival is celebrated gorgeously in the month of Kartika by fireworks and lights, especially in Bombay. Yeah. So, like we were speaking last night, Diwali has become dumbed down to represent fireworks and lights. They don't actually, I mean, some people do, obviously, but it's all about Lord Rama entering back into Lanka after his defeat of Ravana. But for a lot of people, it's just it's a social event rather than a spiritual event. And same thing with Christmas. Christmas and Easter both are very, very emotional festivals for Christians. Christmas is the day that Jesus is born, or appears to be born. And it's an amazing history. And then Easter is when he's crucified. And then resurrects from the dead. I remember early on when I went on Easter Friday night. It's just the whole week of Easter. Every day there's something different that happens to Jesus. But on Friday night he's crucified, and it's very solemn. And there's a midnight mass where they sing these spiritual songs. They're very, very, let's say, they incite emotions where you actually feel the passion of Krishna, of Jesus being crucified and then dying on the cross, and it's like devastating. And they sing these songs with very deep, somber notes and words, and with candles lit in the midnight period, and it really affects you. And in the same way, we see here that this is different. Like it affects you to hear these pastimes and then start meditating on it. And when you start understanding what's actually going on, you get overwhelmed with the emotion of the loving relationship between Yasodamai and Krishna, and how Krishna is acting like an ordinary boy, but yet he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And all this is like overwhelming when you begin to enter into the mystery of it. So, among all the cows that Nanda Maharaj had, he had over 900,000 cows, right? Several of Mother Yasoda's cows ate only grasses that were so flavorful that the grasses would flavor the milk. You see? So, usually when you drink milk today, you buy the white chalk water that's sold as milk in the supermarkets, It doesn't really have much of a taste. It tastes more like, liquefied paper in water with some white coloring added, But when you taste the milk, that our cows give, it's different than that milk that you taste from the supermarket. And Mother Yasoda's cows, their milk had a special flavor to it. And Mother Yasoda would only collect the milk from her cows, and she would make it into yogurt and then churn it into butter. And that's the way you make ghee. You don't make ghee from boiling the milk. Or taking the cream from the milk and then churning it into butter. You make it by first making it into yogurt and then churning the yogurt. In fact, Sanjay knows about this because he's going to invent a product to make it in a traditional way, right, Prabhu? Yeah. Where you make the yogurt first and then you churn the yogurt into ghee and real buttermilk, not the junk buttermilk that they sell, which, they get some water, they add some yogurt to it, they mix it up, they add salt and sodium citrate and this and that, and they call it buttermilk. That's not buttermilk. You have to churn the butter, the yogurt, and then it separates into buttermilk and ghee. That's real buttermilk. Sanjay was telling me, nobody's drinking the real buttermilk. I'm going to make this special appliance to make real buttermilk. Okay. So while churning the butter, Mother Yasoda was singing about the childhood activities of Krishna. She was like a poet. She made up her own songs about Krishna. Of course, she was a pure devotee. If someone wanted to remember something, traditionally, if someone wanted to remember something, the custom was that he or she would transform it into poetry. Transform it into poetry. Or have a professional poet do it. So there's a way of learning Sanskrit through poetry. I think it was Sanatana Goswami who wrote a Sanskrit grammar in which it's all in like poetry, and you memorize the poetry. It's easy to memorize poetry because it rhymes and it's in meter. And then you learn all the different points of grammar. Put your hand, yeah, very good. Okay. So this was the custom. So it appears that Mother Yasoda did not want to forget Krishna's activities at any time, so she poetized all of Krishna's childhood pastimes, such as the killing of Putana, Aghasura. Come on, Mayapur, please. Sit down. Meditate on the hole in your sock. You see the hole? No, the other one. The other one. You see it? You don't see the hole in your sock?
Where? There's not one hole in here. Some sort of a fabric or material that looks like a hole.
Okay. Okay, so just stay put and try and meditate on what we're saying, okay? So, while churning butter, she was singing the poetry. And Prabhupada says, this should be the practice of persons eager to remain Krishna conscious 24 hours a day. Okay, Mayapur, explain to me what I just read. Speak into the microphone.
People who...
did you turn it on? Is it on?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, speak loudly. Go ahead.
People who like chant 24 rounds a day or something. I don't know.
See, he wasn't listening.
I was.
Then how come you can't repeat what I said?
Guys, you talk so fast.
No, I wasn't
Blah,
talking.
blah, 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 blah.
Don't make up a false excuse. Okay, anybody can explain. Yes, Prabhu, give her the microphone. Now listen to what she says. Listen to what she says. Now look at her and listen to what she says.
That this should be the practice of those who wish to be the devotees of Krishna.
Speak louder.
This should be the practice of those who wish to be the devotees of Krishna and always remember him.
How? How?
By singing for him and thinking of him all the time.
24 hours a day.
So Mother Yasoda was to remember what she saw, you know, how Krishna killed Aghasura, or this one or that one, Putana. She made up poetry. Like, for example, you know, Aghasura was a sura. Yeah. He was a fake that presented himself like a snake. Okay, you see, so you can make a poetry up to remember a pastime of the Lord. And then when you're doing things like churning butter, you say, Aghasura was a sura, he was a fake who looked like a snake, you know. And you can sing your song, right? And this is what people did. I mean, you know, in the past, this is what people did. They didn't, you know, they didn't have iPhones and televisions and things like that. So they made up songs out of and made poetry so it was easy to remember and it's rhyming, and they wrote it themselves. Yeah. Okay. So this should be the practice of persons eager to remain Krishna conscious 24 hours a day. You can become a poet and remember Krishna's pastimes. And Prabhupada says, this incident, or this pastime, shows how a Krishna conscious mother Yasoda was. This was the culture of Krishna conscious mothers. They were poets. They were singers. They were just not just mothers. See, this is the difference between a person who has a boring life and a person who has an exciting life. It doesn't matter whether they're rich or poor. If your mind is connected to Krishna, then you become a poet. Then you become a singer. Then you become a writer. Then you become a reciter. All these things you become because it's all connected to remembering Krishna. See? You don't need a television. You become the television. You see? So, Prabhupada says, to be able to stay in Krishna consciousness, we should follow such persons like Mother Yasoda. We should make her daily activities our daily activities. Right? Churning butter, writing poetry about Krishna's pastimes, putting it to music, and then singing. Always keeping the mind on Krishna. Okay, Mayapur, 6 feet away from him. Not that way, this way. Come over here, just sit over here. Just sit here, sit here. Hey, we're here, over here, over here, right here, right here, right here. Hurry up. Okay, good, sit there. Don't look at him. And give me that. You're not supposed to pick that up. Yes. Okay. So anyone who desires to be Krishna conscious in motherly affection or parental affection should contemplate the bodily features of Mother Yasoda. It's not that one should desire to become like Yasoda, for this is Mayavad philosophy. Ah, who can explain this? It's not that one should become like Mother Yasoda, for this is Mayavad philosophy. Yes.
Because
A microphone.
Because you shouldn't you want to like follow the person and serve Mother Yashoda. You don't want to like become her.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. You want to follow. You don't want to imitate, but you follow the principles that that person is demonstrating. Like when you try and imitate someone, but don't have the same power as that person has, then you make yourself a joke. You become a joke. But like, you know, can someone like Pondraka, he tried to imitate Krishna. He became a joke, right? So to imitate Krishna, he wanted to appear as Narayana. So he pasted 2 arms on his body. So that's a joke, right? He doesn't have 4 arms. So if you want to imitate a pure devotee, you'll become a joke. But if you follow the principles that are demonstrated by the pure devotees' activities, like Prabhupada, instead of imitating becoming a Jagat Guru, you should imitate him chant. You should follow his chanting of Hare Krishna. You see, there's a difference. Some people want to become Jagat Guru without having, Jagat Guru means the Guru of the whole universe, but without having the purity of Srila Prabhupada. But what we should follow is his example of regularly chanting 16 rounds, or regularly chanting his rounds, and regularly reading and hearing and explaining Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and respecting only prasadam, and being regulated, and preaching always. So we must follow in the footsteps of the inhabitants of Vrindavan, not to become like them. We should follow their example that they're demonstrating by their regulated activities of devotional service. Therefore, the descriptions here are of advanced devotees, and we should always meditate on Mother Yasoda and how much she loved Krishna, and how she dressed, and how she worked, and how beautifully the flowers were arranged in her hair, and so forth. One should take advantage of the full description provided in the Srimad Bhagavatam by thinking of Mother Yasoda in maternal affection of Krishna. So she was dressed in a yellow sari with a belt tied about her full hips, and she was churning the butter by pulling on the rope and working hard doing it, and her bangles and earrings were moving back and forth as she was vibrating, and her whole body was shaking. And because of her intense love for Krishna, her breasts were wet with milk, her face with his beautiful eyebrows was wet with perspiration, and malati flowers were falling from her hair. So here's a description of Mother Yasoda. So we can't imitate that, but we can follow it. So we should always be thinking of Krishna and doing household chores based on love of Krishna, and share that with our family, etc. We shouldn't be up there on Twitter, what was you doing today? Oh, I ate a hamburger. Oh, a hamburger, that's interesting. Did you put ketchup on it? Yeah, I did put some ketchup on it. You know, while your mom is washing the dishes. You should be up there helping your mom wash the dishes. And you should learn from your mom how to make, like your mom yesterday made ginger chutney, right? Yeah. See, you don't even know. I know, you don't know. So do you know how to make ginger chutney? You know, unless you help your mom, you'll never learn. You should learn how to make ginger chutney. Next time I see you, I want you to be able to make ginger chutney. You see? So, I mean, so many young girls have grown up in the last 2 generations learning nothing from their grandmother or their mother. And today, you know, you say, oh, you know how to do that. Like, what did Prabhupada teach the first female devotees in ISKCON? She taught Yamuna how to make rotis. He said, you can't be a woman unless you know how to make rotis. Or he called it chapatis. So, you know, you have to learn from your mothers. And we have to learn from the Supreme Mother, Yasodamai. And the boys have to learn from their mothers and fathers. Now, let's say you don't have a mother. Then you learn from other mothers. How to cook. How to do this, how to do that. This is culture. All this is culture. So, while Mother Yasoda was churning butter, Lord Krishna, desiring to drink the milk of her breast, appeared before her, and in order to increase her transcendental pleasure, he caught hold of the churning rod and began to prevent her from churning. This is what kids do all the time. Like, for example, when, what's his name? Rajesh, is it? No, he's playing the big drum. His little boy comes and tries to stop him, you know, right? That's what little kids do. Right? They want to get the attention. Rishi, yeah. Okay, so now we'll continue with Damodar Hasta.
When is class going to be done?
Is that the only question you have? You have no question about the Damodar Hasta? You just want to know when the class is going to be done? Well, let's take a vote. Who wants the class to stop right now? You're outvoted. Okay. So, having caught Krishna, Mother Yasoda having caught Krishna, Krishna started crying and rubbing his frightened eyes with his lotus hands. And when he did that, his kajal, or his black, what do you call it? His black stain on his eyes got wet and started running down his eyes. See? So nowadays they make mascara that doesn't run. It's not water soluble, right? But this kajal is a natural mascara, so you know if you get water on it, it'll run down your eyes. So because he was crying, his kajal started running down his cheeks, which is very beautiful to see, actually. And he was gasping because he was crying like that. He was gasping for breath, and then he was shaking his neck and other things, and his ornaments, and his neck had 3 lines on it. How many lines do you have on your neck, Mayapur? You know? Okay, take a look. Let's see. Let's look at his. What's your name?
Advitya.
Let's look at Advait's neck. How many lines? No. I mean, what did he say? Avidya. No, look, no, don't do that. Let him look in your neck. Let him look. How many lines does he have in his neck?
Looks like 2.
2?
Kind of, yeah.
No, look more carefully.
Yeah? There's 2.
Huh?
There's 2.
It's 2? Okay, look on Arusha's neck.
No, don't.
Don't do that. Just hold it.
There's like 1, 2 lines.
2.
Oh, then Arush is not Krishna, and Avidya.
Advitya.
Huh? Avidya is not Krishna.
No, you have 1.
He has 4?
Oh, you have 2.
He has 4?
No, you have 2.
2, yeah. So that means he's not Krishna. Krishna has 3 lines on his neck.
Next Shorya.
Let me. No, you don't have 3. We're not. It's not 3 necks. Okay. So Krishna had 3 lines, like a conch, on his neck. And it says that Stita Graivam Damodaram Bhakti Badam. Bhakti Badam. Krishna was tied up by the bhakti of his mother Yasoda. say. And so Rudantam Muhur Netra Yukmam Rijantam. Rudantam means weeping, he's crying. And Muhu, again and again. Netra Yukmam. And he was rubbing his two eyes. Netra Yukmam. Rijantam, rubbing. And Kara Amboja Yukmena, with the two lotus hands. And Satanka Netram, he had frightened eyes. And Muhu, again and again, and so forth. So, he was weeping and glancing at his mom in fear. He was rubbing his eyes and spreading the black kajal on his face. Haribol. How many lines does she have on her neck? No, don't do that. No, put your head down. Hey, wow. How many? Haribo.
Sanskrithi.
You think you could understand? Come here, stand here. We would reach you right here.
Start singing. What are you waiting for?
You have to pause the music.
No, you start singing.
Yashomati Nandana Vrajavaranagara Gokula Ranjana Kana
Yashomati Nandana Vrajavaranagara Gokula Ranjana Kana
Gopi Pranadhana Madana Manohara Kaliya Dhamana Vidhana
Gopi Paranadhara Madana Manohara Kaliya Dhamana Vidhana
Amala Harinam Mamiya Vilasa
Amala Harinam Mamiya Vilasa
Vipina Purandara Navina Nagarabara
Vipina Purandara Navina Nagara Bora
Vamsi Vadana Suvasa
Namsi Vadana Suvasa
Vrajajana Palana Sukula Nashana
Vrajajana Palana Shirakura Nasana
Nanda Godana Rakhvala
Nanda Godamara Kovala
Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara
Madhava Navalita Taskara
Sundarananda Gopala
Sundarananda Gopala
Yamuna Tatachara Gopi Vasanahara
Yamuna Tatachara Gopi Vasanahara
Rasarasika Kripamoya
Rasarasika Kripamoya
Shri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natavara
Shri Radha Vallabha Vrindavana Natavara
Bhakti Vinoda Shaya
Bhakti Vinoda Shaya
Shumati Nandana Vrajavaranagara Gokularan Janakana
Yashomati Nandana Vrajajana
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare
So last class we had was over 2 weeks ago. We had homework. And Shrestha did her homework. And the question that she was given is, explain how the Lord cannot be achieved through mundane activities. And to answer this question, she quoted, or she studied verses, chapter Bhagavad Gita 8, verse 28, and Bhagavad Gita chapter 11, verse 53, Bhagavad Gita chapter 18, verse 67, Bhagavad Gita chapter 11, verse 48, and Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, verse 59. And she writes, Krishna clearly declares that he cannot be understood. The knowledge about him cannot be explained, and he cannot be attained just by simply studying the Vedas, performing austerities, penances, charity, worship, etc. What matters is the pure love for him and performing unalloyed devotional service unto him. He also says that the universal form of his cannot be seen by anyone in this material world except for his purest devotees like Arjuna. This does not mean that study of the Vedas is a bad thing. However, it is not open to one who simply speculates or is envious of Krishna, such as Ravana was a great scholar who underwent great penances, but he had envy for Krishna and he tried to show off his greatness. Jai Shri Radha Nilamadhava Ki Jai. Wow. Reading and understanding the Vedas without speculation helps establish good character and makes one ready for the process of receiving the knowledge of Krishna. The process of attaining the supreme abode of the Lord, as mentioned in the Vedas, is to go through the varnashram system and perform prescribed duties through all these stages. Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasi. The beauty of Krishna consciousness, however, is that only by engaging in devotional service one can surpass all the rituals of the different orders of life and attain those results. In other words, you don't even have to go through the varnashram system. You can go directly to engaging full-time in devotional service. And you surpass all the rituals and different orders of life. As we understand that Krishna can only be attained through pure love for him and by performing unalloyed devotional service unto him, we now need to understand how this can be achieved. The pure love for Krishna can be achieved by knowing him and serving him. One can learn about Krishna by studying Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's words, and Bhagavatham, Krishna's pastimes, through a bona fide spiritual master, a pure devotee of Krishna. Through the association of pure devotees, one gets placed in the devotional service. As one starts performing devotional service, their misconceptions of Krishna about his form, his attributes, his pastimes, etc., will be removed and one gets fixed in their study. One starts relishing the study of Gita and they attain the state of always being Krishna conscious. As one starts performing more and more unalloyed devotional service, one attains the pure love for Krishna. A being or a person cannot simply perform mundane activities and expect to attain the Lord. Even the prescribed duties in Krishna consciousness or devotional in Krishna, okay, even prescribed duties in Krishna conscious path, meaning devotional service, if performed without being true to the essence of serving the Supreme Lord with love, it just simply becomes a mundane activity. Pure love or bhakti is defined by three things. Firstly, let's just put it first. having a giving propensity, not asking for anything. Secondly, living and breathing for that person. Third, or finally, feeling happiness for their achievements and feeling sad for them for their sorrow, no matter how you feel. That has to be rewritten. Anyway. Hence, one should always read Bhagavad Gita under the guidance of the pure devotees, perform unalloyed devotional service, and chant the holy names of the Lord with utmost sincerity to attain the love of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, very good, Shrestha. Hari Bol. Okay, thank you. Again. Well, now we'll just finish the second verse, and then Rudantam Muhur Netra Yugmam Rejanatam Karamboja Yugmena Satanka Netram Muhu Swasa Kampa Chi Rekanka Kanta Stita Graivam Damodaram Bhakti Badam. So, Krishna is showing fear. He's trying to run away to escape a spanking. And by crying, it shakes his ornaments, such as a string of pearls on his smooth neck, which has 3 lines like a conch. So Damodar, so if you remember one thing from the lecture today, this should be the one thing. The meaning of Damodara. Damodar means he has a rope on his abdomen. You know what the abdomen is? It's like yeah. Yeah, it's like stomach. Yeah. So, what does Damodar mean, Mayapur? Yes, very good. The rope on the abdomen, right? And this is described in the 10th canto, 9th chapter, 14th verse. So let's look at that. Oh, by the way, your homework for tomorrow. Your homework for tomorrow is to read Canto 10, Chapter 9. And there are, how many verses in Chapter 9? It's only 20-some verses. 23 verses and purports. So it's like about 20 pages. So Chapter 10, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chapter 10, I'm sorry, Canto 10, Chapter 9, the whole chapter. Okay? And you read the whole chapter, and
The whole chapter in one day.
in 1 hour. It won't take you more than an hour to read.
1 second.
No, in 1 hour.
1 millisecond.
And again, continuing with what Shrestha wrote, you study verse 21. And again, explain why people have difficulty understanding Krishna. It's explained in verse 21 of chapter 10, Canto 10, chapter 9 of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so you want to read all the verses and purports, and then write about text or verse number 21, why it's difficult for people to understand and Krishna. Okay?
Okay.
Good. All right, so we sit over here. Okay, so we'll finish up now. So we're going to read right now Canto 10, Chapter 9, verse 14, that explains the rope around Krishna's stomach. So it says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has no beginning and no end, no exterior and no interior, no front and no rear. In other words, he is all-pervading. Because he is not under the influence of the element of time, for him there is no difference between past, present, and future. He exists in his own transcendental form at all times, being absolute beyond relativity. He is free from distinctions between cause and effect, although he is the cause and effect of everything. That unmanifested person who is beyond the perception of the senses had now appeared as a human child, and Mother Yasoda, considering him her own ordinary child, bound him to the wooden mortar with a rope. In Bhagavad Gita 10:12, Krishna is described as the Supreme Brahman, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma. The word Brahma means the greatest. Krishna is greater than the greatest, being unlimited and all-pervading. How can it be possible for the all-pervading to be measured or bound? Then again, Krishna is the time factor. Therefore, he is all-pervading, not only in space, but also in time. We have measurements of time, but although we are limited by past, present, and future, for Krishna, these do not exist. Every individual person can be measured, but Krishna has already shown that although he also is an individual, the entire cosmic manifestation is within his mouth. All these points considered, Krishna cannot be measured. How then did Yasoda want to measure him and bind him? We must conclude that this took place simply on the platform of pure transcendental love. This was the only cause. Everything is one because Krishna is the supreme cause of everything. Krishna cannot be measured or calculated by Vedic knowledge. Vedesu durlabham. He is available only to devotees. Adurlabham atma bhakto. Devotees can handle him because they act on the basis of loving service. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyas chasmi tatvataha. Thus, Mother Yasoda wanted to bind Krishna. Okay, so you're going to read the whole chapter. I'm going to do it too. And write why it's difficult for people to understand Krishna. Normal people, people who have no love and not engaged in devotional service, it's very difficult or impossible, actually, to understand Krishna. Okay? Huh? No, now you have to do your homework. And you have to do homework in class. So everyone, no, I'm just kidding. But we should do that. We should do the homework in class. Then that way you know it's done. Who's going to do the homework? Raise your hand. Who's going to make a vow to do the homework? Okay, so it's going to take at least an hour and a half, an hour to read the chapter.
Use my pages are upside down. One is in like Canto 18.
There's no Canto 18. Okay. Good. Haribol, Haribol. Glory to Srila Prabhupada ki